proper maintenance of the samurai sword is imperative to continued usage of a blade that can last a long time. Many of these blades have been passed down from family member to family member. And if you're going to maintain the blade, it's imperative that you learn the proper way of doing it. It's a dangerous process, and if you're going to be any type of a martial artist whatsoever, it's imperative that you understand how to properly treat the sword. Cleaning the blade is very, very important. As we clean the blade, notice we have the kojiri facing away from us. That's the end of the saya, and the handle toward us. We open properly by pushing with our thumb against the tsuba, which opens the saya itself. Then I withdraw the saya from the sword and place it so that the end of the saya, the open end, on the floor facing behind me. This will be very important later on when we go to replace it. I begin by examining the sword, starting on the omote side, starting at the tsuba and moving my eyes upward toward the kisaki, turning it over, and back down toward the tsuba. At this point, I want to remove any oil or accumulation of any particles that may have accumulated on the sword from cutting. So I take a piece of washi, Japanese paper, it's very soft paper, and I apply it against the side of the blade. Usually I start with my thumb on the back of the washi, wrapping the paper around the blade, pressing inward against the blade very hard with my thumb in one direction, always from the back of the blade toward the kisaki. Then I turn the paper over, and I use my fingers this time on the opposite side of the blade, twisting toward myself, pulling the oil off on the ura side of the blade, and then any leftover. I then take this uchiko ball. Uchiko is a powder, a ground stone, and we use it to collect any excess oil off the blade. So I go from tsuba to kisaki. I turn the blade over, kisaki to tsuba. And in this case, I'm going to also run the mine, the back of the blade. I take a second piece of washi, or Japanese paper, and I now clean the uchiko, the powder, off the blade, using once again my thumb going in the direction to the kisaki. Flip the washi over, the paper over, use my fingers to grab the other side, and then the back side of the blade on the mine. Notice I'm placing the tsuka, the end of the handle, against my hip to give it security. I press forward and downward now on the back of the sword. I now apply choji oil, a light mineral oil, to a small piece of cloth. And I wrap that cloth around the blade in the same manner. And I pass it from the bottom toward the top, maybe making one or two passes, always in the same direction. Then in addition to having examined the blade itself, I also want to examine and take the time at this time to examine the koshirai. The koshirai is the furniture of the blade, the handle, the tsuba, all the extra parts. Particularly, I want to pay attention to the mekugi. The mekugi are these small pins in the handle that keep it secure to the blade itself. So I want to make sure that these are tight, they're not worn. I can do that by first examining each side. I can shake the sword slightly to feel for any looseness. When I'm secure that everything is proper, I replace the sword in the saya, once again turning it upside down and slowly replacing. making sure everything is secure and a good fit, showing respect for the blade. And now I'm ensured of a properly cleaned sword that will function for many, many years.